there are over 100 different autoimmune diseases. There are probably 80 million people in the US living with some type of autoimmune disease. Now, of course, they don't all need CAR T cells, but CAR T cells have been dramatically effective in early clinical trials for patients with autoimmune diseases like lupus and systemic sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases. I think that's the next big frontier, using what we learned in treating blood cancers to patients with all kinds of different diseases, where targeting abnormal cells with a CAR T cell, with a CAR modified T cell, can be effective. So I'm really excited about where this field is going now.
Hello and welcome to this special episode of CureTalk. Today we are diving deep into the conversation that goes beyond science, into the people, processes, and purpose behind one of the most significant cancer breakthroughs of our time, CAR T therapy. CAR T has changed the way we treat certain cancers, particularly blood cancers, and most of that transformation began right here at the University of Pennsylvania. Penn is home to multiple teams doing cutting edge work in CAR T, but today, we are speaking with one team in particular, the Clinical Trials Unit at the Center for Cellular Immunotherapies, or CCI. This team has helped bring CAR T from lab bench to bedside, translating experimental protocols into real treatments for real patients. And they contribute to implement some of the most complex trials in this field. We are joined by 5 members of this incredible team: Dr. David Potter, Director of Cell Therapy and Transplant at Penn Medicine; Joan Gilmore, Associate Director of Clinical Trials Operations; Karen Dengel, Research Nurse Manager; Renee Martins, Clinical Research Project Manager; and Kim Mary Shee, Clinical Research Nurse. Thank you all so much for being here today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Just to get started, Dr. Porter, I'm going to start with you. You've been at the forefront of CAR T therapy for years, from some of the earliest trials to today's established protocols. What made CAR T breakthrough possible at Penn, not just scientifically, but institutionally?
Well, thanks for having us, Priya. That's a great question, and probably the most important, in fact. I think there is a real commitment and a spirit to teamwork at Penn that was so obvious when we first started the CAR T cell trials. It required really cross-disciplinary expertise and participation. We had a group of colleagues who were working together. Nobody had any nobody had any particular concern that they had to be in charge or they had to own it. Everybody just wanted to do this and make it work. And so there was a spirit of collaboration like nothing I have seen before. And that went across the institution, the support from the administration, the Cancer Center, the Center for Cellular Immunotherapy. It went across the clinicians, the scientists, from Carl June's lab to our correlative science lab, to the clinicians taking care of the patients, and then really to the research team who made this all happen and had to actually help develop and implement the clinical trials. Everybody was working together in a way that should be obvious, but doesn't always come together and gel and work. And everything here around the CAR T cell program really came together. It gelled, everybody doing their part, everybody talking to each other, working together, learning from each other. You have to remember, we had never done this before. Nobody knew what was going to happen with CAR T cells. So it required a really high level of communication, everybody telling everybody else what they were learning. And I think that's really what led to its success, and really propelled it forward faster than almost anything I've seen develop before.
Amazing. I totally understand. The collaboration, probably that would be the biggest role that CTUs role in this journey,
Oh,
this team uh, that is sitting with us virtually here. Uh, so I'm just going to, go around the circle to, just get everybody's perspective. Joan, you worked on CAR-T since the very first trial that led to the FDA approval. And you're often the bridge between the protocol and the practice. What does it actually take to implement a trial? That is to move it from paper to patient.
I think I'm going to build on similar to what Dr. Porter was saying, that teamwork is key,
Yeah.
not just for our unit, but our partners in the clinical operations group in CCI and various clinical groups across the health system. Um, that's important in translating from the paper to reality. With our 15 to 20 years experience in treating patients with this type of therapy, and in addition with our nurses' experience in understanding the operational realities of clinical care, we're able to develop workflows that meets the demands of the protocol, but also ensure the safety and comfort of our patients. It's important to dissect the protocol and anticipate where bottlenecks and confusion might arise. It's about building clarity and translating abstract requirements into like concrete steps that are feasible, safe, and that align with the standard practices here at Penn.
So, Joan, I understand you also manage, as you said, all the coordination of the people, the nurses, the physicians, the CRCs. Uh, so can you just dive a little bit deeper into how you align everyone onto the same page when, the work is this complex?
I think it's a common theme that we're going to say during this talk is communication and teamwork. Communication is key. We hold, I guess, cross-functional meetings where we encourage questions, and we make sure that each team understands how their role connects to the bigger picture of the projects that we're on. It's important for all of us to respect each other's role and their individual contribution, and that kind of fosters trust. And it builds a collaborative environment, like we were saying, Dr. Porter was saying before, where and then in that environment, everybody feels invested in the success of a trial and the outcome on how it's going to work out.
And Karen, you're often on the floor, I believe, translating protocols into hands-on care. How do you approach that moment when a treatment plan becomes a patient's lived experience?
Yeah. So when we approach a protocol, I think the main thing to keep in mind is the key point is to keep the patient in mind. Many times we understand that the patients are overwhelmed dealing with their disease as well as the varied treatment options that are presented to them. So they come to us in a way in a vulnerable position. So, we have to have empathy towards the patient, and again, the clear communication is the main focus. So they truly understand that when they're getting involved in the CAR T cell trial, that we make it that they fully understand all the steps that are involved in that and all the risks and everything, because they are complex trials, and we want to make sure that the patient fully understands when they're participating what's involved. So when we meet with the patient, the investigator, the study team will go through the protocol step by step, including all the phases of that trial, which may, include the screening eligibility phase, the actual treatment phase, and then the post-monitoring of the CAR T cell phase. And we also make it very clear to the patient that we're there for them and that, to please contact us with any questions. So there's this continuous supportive, hopefully caring relationship that we try to build with the patient so that we're always there for them to navigate them through the protocols.
Karen, over all these years of experience, what's something people might not realize about how nurses add to, or bring in innovation to these trials?
Yeah. So we're fortunate, our group, we have some really wonderful CRNs that work with us, and they contribute their years of nursing skills to the trials, which is invaluable. So they bring along with them their clinical experience, their medical knowledge, their just basic knowledge of caring for patients through their years of being a nurse on the floors and such. So as the nurse manager, one of my responsibilities, which actually is a big part that I really enjoy about my job, is that I am involved in helping develop new novel administration processes. This has come to light more since we've now shifted our focus more away from liquid. I mean, we still do liquid tumor trials, but we've now shifted the focus to include solid tumor trials, which now have required the need to have these new novel administration delivery systems of CAR T cells, which may include like intrathecal for glioblastoma patients, intraperitoneal for mesothelioma patients or lung cancer patients, and intraperitoneal procedures for our ovarian or pancreatic patients. So I rely on the nurse's input while these processes are being developed. So their input is invaluable to me. And they ultimately will be the nurses at the bedside with the investigator to assist with these new innovative processes.
Thank you, Karen. Rini, you manage CAR-T trials for glioblastoma and particularly aggressive and high-stage cancer, I suppose. But something you often talk about is advocacy. So what does patient advocacy mean to you in this kind of an environment?
Well, these trials, as everybody's mentioned, tend to be pretty complex. We ask a lot of patients, a lot of visits, a lot of procedures. They have to go to a lot of different places on campus to have various things done. So one thing that I can offer them is just help navigating all of that and making sure that while we are following protocol, that shouldn't be on their mind at all. They should just feel comfortable knowing that somebody's getting them everywhere they need to go, hopefully giving them some peace of mind while they go through what can be difficult at times just because of the complexity and obviously because of what they're dealing with personally with their diagnosis. So if we can just keep that as our guiding principle to keep their peace of mind, it's at the forefront. That's how I approach advocacy.
It's very difficult to juggle the logistics of such trials and still have the patient centricity as a focus. Right. So thanks, Rini. Kim, then my next question is to you. I believe you are often the first and most consistent voice a patient hears. You've described your role, when we discussed previously as saying, we've got you, right? That confidence you give to the patients. So what does that mean in practice? How do you support patients through those unknowns of the CAR-T trial?
To me, we've got you means that as their point of contact, I provide ongoing communication and clear guidance through every step of the trial. And as has been mentioned before, these tend to be quite complex protocols and with a lot of steps involved, a lot of procedures to be done and appointments to be made. I like to tell the patients, first of all, I like to first clarify the medical info that they encounter in the protocol and put it into understandable language so that they fully understand and have all the options and information available to them to make, informed decisions about the trial. Then I also understand that, they're dealing with their cancer and they're entering a clinical trial at a very large place like Penn, and it can be quite overwhelming and scary. And so I tell them that my team will be handling all the logistics from coordinating with various providers to scheduling all the necessary appointments along the way so that they can focus on their health. I also provide follow-through and guidance at every time point so that they feel supported and safe throughout the process. I think at the heart of it, it's really about trust and compassion, advocacy, and showing them that there's an entire team working together for them to make sure that their needs aren't lost in the system.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing is teamwork, with patient at the center. Amazing. Great. Dr. Porter, circling back to you, you have witnessed breakthroughs and probably even setbacks. So, what are the toughest moments, and how do you stay inspired to keep pushing forward? Or in other words, how do you process loss when a patient doesn't respond to therapy?
Well, I would say that's probably the hardest part
Yeah.
of what we do.
Mhm.
Um, most clinical trials of really novel new experimental therapies aren't successful. And that is a frustration, but you have to do them to move forward. If you don't keep trying, you're not going to find those things that work. Um, I learned a lesson very early in my career where one of my mentors said, um, uh, we're treating a patient and therapy didn't work, and it is devastating. It's devastating for us. It's devastating for the patient and their family. Um, but oftentimes they don't have other hope and they don't have other options. And hopefully something good comes of it for those patients who undergo these experimental therapies
Mhm.
and they don't work. I think part of our obligation is to understand why. I will say that we probably learned more about CAR T cell therapy from the patients who were treated and who participated in the trials when they didn't work. And that allowed us to understand why something doesn't work. How can we fix it, make it better so it works the next time for the next patient? Um, and you have to keep going forward. Otherwise, those next group of patients won't have that opportunity and you won't be able to help anybody. Um, it is a very hard part of this field and this job and these clinical trials that unfortunately too often they're not successful. What we have to do is keep trying to offer the very best trials, learn from what works and what doesn't work, and make it better the next time, so that ultimately we get to that point where we can offer patients these trials and
Mhm.
they are successful when nothing else really has been.
So, Dr. Porter, what still excites you? I think RT is still a very happening and exciting landscape. So, what do you see as a next big leap?
I think there's so much exciting
Yeah.
happening. It is a really powerful therapy. It has really transformed how we treat things like leukemia and lymphoma, multiple myeloma. Um, there are a number of things that I think are incredibly exciting, and you heard a little touched on today by everybody on this call.
Mhm.
Um, it's been so dramatically effective for these blood cancers.
Yeah.
We've been testing for several years and it keeps getting better and better, trying to apply the similar approach, the same technology to patients with other cancers, with solid tumors, for instance. And in fact, the research team here on this call is spending tremendous amounts of effort trying to run those clinical trials in solid tumors. As yet, it hasn't been as dramatically effective as in blood cancers. But again, you keep learning and you keep making it better. And we're now starting to see responses and we're now starting to see these therapies be more and more effective. And I have no doubt that that will be a really important therapy for patients with different cancers. I think the next big frontier is applying this therapy to diseases beyond cancer. We have a very active program in trying to use CAR T cells to treat autoimmune diseases.
Mhm.
There are over 100 different autoimmune diseases. There are probably 80 million people in the US living with some type of autoimmune disease. Now, of course, they don't all need CAR T cells, but CAR T cells have been dramatically effective in early clinical trials for patients with autoimmune diseases like lupus and
Yeah.
systemic sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases. I think that's the next big frontier, using what we learned in treating blood cancers to patients with all kinds of different diseases, where targeting abnormal cells with a CAR T cell, with a CAR modified T cell, can be effective. So I'm really excited about where this field is going now.
Absolutely. So it's going to go beyond cancer. And that is something that I believe, all of us are looking forward to. So thank you, Dr. Bota, for that. Joan, can you reflect on what it means for you to work in an institution like Penn, where clinical research is so deeply embedded? And, what gives you greatest sense of pride when you see a trial come to life?
Working at Penn, I've been at Penn for 27 years, and I worked from a research technician to a coordinator to now managing coordinators, and just seeing the technology and the university grow into well, I mean, I've only been here 27 years, so I've seen this therapy go from the beginnings to approval and growing to what Dr. Porter was saying, just being on the forefront there. It's an honor to work here and to honor with the doctors I work with and researchers. So that's just amazing, and I see that the university leadership is supportive and continues to be supportive of the research we're doing here, and acknowledging the importance that the research today leads to therapy for the future in these various diseases. So for that, I see. Anyway, yeah.
Uh, Karen, I believe you've also been working here for quite a few years. So my question is like, what keeps you inspired to continue this work even on the very hard days, when it's difficult?
Yeah, just
You
the
know,
people I work with, the integrity they show, the compassion they show for their patients is always inspiring to me, as well as obviously the high cutting edge work that we do and how impactful it is to patients and the hope it gives patients.
That's amazing because this is one thing that actually struck me when we were discussing about the session, and most of you came back saying, we love to work in this field. We love, and that is so. After working for so many years, it is so good to hear that the reason why you all come back, continue this work even on the very, very hard days. So, first of all, I think I should thank you all for doing this great work, and I truly appreciate this, and it's so inspiring. Rini, what do you want future researchers or coordinators to understand, about the work behind a breakthrough? And it'd be great if you could add a few lines on how Penn structure helps your team deliver these kind of complex trials.
Well, I think it's important to know, I feel that we keep almost being redundant with the teamwork and collaboration talk, but it is so true. And I feel fortunate to work at Penn and also in CCI with our structure, the CTU's team is amazing. And I think that we've all been taught to be able to look ahead, to plan as best as possible, to be able to carry out these protocols. But also a big part of our job is being flexible and adaptive, because we all know that every day there are fires to put out or unforeseen circumstances. So being in a place like Penn that does so much research, but also the people that are on this call, even who have such experience and can pass down their experience and their knowledge that they've learned over the years to how we can operate like a well-oiled machine to do these complex trials. And then even on, we're on what we call the site side, but our sponsor side, which is also a Penn entity, we, I think, work very well with them as well. So just years of experience and passing on knowledge to one another.
Thank you, Rini. Kim, what do you hope patients take away from the experience with you? Regardless of the trial's outcome.
Well, regardless of trial outcome, I hope that patients will walk away feeling heard and supported and respected. First and foremost, I want them to know that someone cared about them as a person, not just as a study participant, and that they had a consistent guide to answer their questions, to ease their fears, and to advocate for their needs. Even in difficult circumstances, my goal for them is to be able to move forward with a sense of trust and reassurance that they were never alone in this phase of their journey.
Thank you, Kim. So I think combined, this team actually has decades and decades of clinical trial experience. So I have this one last question before we wind up for today, and I would like each of you to give your answer. It's a very general question, just helping people understand what clinical trials is. So, what is the one thing you wish people would better understand about clinical trials? We'll start with you, Dr. Porter.
I think most clinical trials are designed to try and make therapies better. They're not experimenting just recklessly. I think there is some sense among some communities of distrust in clinical trials. They throw around the term like guinea pig and you're experimenting on people. We are doing experiments in clinical trials to offer patients therapy that they might not otherwise have access to and to make treatments better. They are highly regulated. There's tremendous oversight and review. So many people think about the clinical trial they oversee it. There's so many mechanisms to try and make sure that they are done with the utmost safety and concern. And really, many trials are often in a patient's best interest. They're not just recklessly experimenting. And I think that's a really important message. And it's an important message that I think we relay to each patient from the group you see here.
Yeah. Certainly. Joan, you want to add to this?
I think Dr. Porter covered mostly what I would have said. I would like to add, at least in our case, in our trials, that the patient will not be alone, that we as nurses and coordinators are going to help you. And actually, and sometimes when they participate in a clinical trial, they actually might have enhanced communication with their clinical staff, because we help communicate. We're the conduit between the patient, sometimes to their doctors or nurse practitioners and other providers. So in some ways, they might have an enhanced, I don't want to enhance in a better way, but enhanced experience that they will not be alone in navigating the complex medical care while participating in a clinical trial.
Thank you, Joan. Karen, you want to jump in with any other perspective?
Yeah, I think the idea that the scientific breakthroughs happen not in a bubble, but it's a commitment from all levels who are involved in the study, from the scientists, the physicians, the nurses, to the coordinators, and especially the patients, that we value. Thank goodness that they're there to participate and be brave enough in ways to get involved in these trials.
Thank you, Karen. Rini?
Yeah, it's difficult. Everybody is covering, I think, some of the main points, but I just will echo what everyone says about I would like patients to know that we're not, taking them to some strange medical building or research only building that's separate from the rest of the Penn community. They're fully integrated, receiving the same kind of care, the same level of care that they would if they were coming in not on a trial. And I think some people think of it as something very different than what it is. So I think that's what I'd want people to know.
Thank you, Rini. Kim, is there anything more you'd like to add?
Well, again, I think that everyone has covered the finer points of clinical trials. I would like to say that we adopt a holistic and collaborative approach, team approach, in fact, to providing patient-focused care as we coordinate through these protocols. The primary focus is on safety, and I think that, patients have the opportunity within a clinical trial to have almost one-on-one attention throughout the months that they're here for treatment. And so I think that that's an opportunity for them to feel like they're getting this individualized care and concern for their needs.
Thank you, Kim. I think there's one thought that resonates throughout, that anybody who enrolls in a clinical trial is not alone. So audience, please remember, you're not alone. There's a whole team that works behind you. Behind every trial, there's an entire team of nurses and researchers and CRCs who make sure that you're safe and that you're looked after. So thank you, each one of you, for your insights and your unwavering commitment to patients. Thank you to our listeners for joining us for this look behind the curtain at what makes CAR-T therapy and the people behind it so extraordinary. This has been Cure Talks. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and stay connected. Thank you, everyone.